Hello everyone, I am back with a new video. I haven't made a video in a while, and this is my first video of 2017, so Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you had a good New Year. I've been taking a break from making videos really because I just wasn't inspired to talk about anything, particularly following the election, and I felt like a lot of people felt like everyone had something to say, but no one was really saying a lot that meant anything, principally because, we don't really know what's going to happen in the next couple, and in this week actually, but at that point we didn't know what was going to happen in the next couple months. So I just wasn't inspired to say anything really. I wasn't inspired to comment. I felt like everyone was commenting and I was just basically listening. But I'm here today, and what I wanted to talk about was something that's been on my mind for a few weeks, and that is the issue of Black political maturity. So it's well known and documented that African Americans, we've had a lack of political maturity historically, and for obvious reasons. We were brought to America to be slaves, to work for other people. We weren't brought to have a political say. We weren't brought to have a vote. We weren't brought to have a voice. And we were deprived of that voice for so long that whenever avenues started opening up to where African Americans could be given voices and given a say inside of the government, we were so enthusiastic, it seems, and a lot of people took advantage of our enthusiasm. And historically, the ones who really took advantage of the enthusiasm was more the Republicans. And after a while, it became the Democrats. And that's where we are today, is where Democrats basically rule. They have ownership of the Black vote, basically. And so what we see is like things recently, of course, with President Obama. And me personally, I'm one of those people who's not a fan of President Obama, although I think, it's nice to see a beautiful Black family and Black love and all that stuff, but I don't get caught up in that as much as what you're doing and what you're doing for your people, and what you're doing for not just for your people, but doing to other disenfranchised people around the world. And I felt like the president was a continuation of a lot of the white supremacist policies that have been implemented, not just to Black people in America, but to Black people around the world. So for me personally, I've never been too invested into the Obama presidency, particularly by the time I started taking note of things and being more observant about what was going on inside of government and inside of politics. I really felt that it's not so much who's in office or what color the person is who is in office, but it's the idea of this office existing and the support of the office being really rooted in white supremacy and white supremacist policies. So I say that to say, getting back to the African American community, Black people, when it comes to political maturity, we've basically been fed this idea of symbolism. And the idea is that we are more enthusiastic about symbols. And as long as we're given symbols, we're okay with the state of affairs not being what they should be. So if you think about it, a while ago, I think it was in late 80s, there was a big debate going on about having a Martin Luther King Day. And realistically, Martin Luther King Day is a great day. It's just a lot of great celebrations that go on. And obviously, Martin Luther King deserves a lot of commemoration for what he's done for Black people. But realistically, having Martin Luther King Day really didn't do anything for the state of African Americans. However, you gave them Martin Luther King Day. What happens? All this symbolism of having a day devoted to Martin Luther King, a lot of people were able to be happy and content with just that. Another example, outside of the current example, which is President Obama, but a more recent example would be them putting Harriet Tubman on the dollar bill. It doesn't do anything for us, really. But it's a symbol, and it's symbolism, and Black people love symbolism. The African American Museum in D.C., everyone's going to see this museum, and everyone's happy about it because we love symbolism. So with President Obama, we love the symbolism of seeing a Black man in the highest position in office, and this Black man who has been pretty blameless throughout his career, and there's not much you can say about him as far as his family, as far as his education, as far as his demeanor, his presence. All of that, all those things are positive, and having that type of representation of Blackness inside of the highest office in the United States has had a lot of Black people created silence for them as far as complaining about their conditions in this country, or as far as expecting anything from that Black president. All of this goes back to political maturity, because if we were politically mature, the thing that I think we should take away from the Obama presidency is that we should not care anymore what color any person is who is in office. Because the fact is, when you put that person in office, and we've seen this with Obama, we put him in office, but then here comes the politics. I don't want to seem too Black because this is the president. I can't seem too Black, and I have all these white constituents, and so I'm going to say I'm not the president of Black America, and I'm going to implement policies that seem colorblind and really do hardly anything for the Black community. So what Obama did is basically just sit in the White House and lecture Black people, and really didn't expect, we didn't really expect much from him, and that allowed him to basically appease his white constituents. And because of all of that, we are here today, having had a Black president, finding out that it really doesn't mean much. So what's the point, I would say, of electing Black leaders who are beholden to white interest? There is no point, because even if we do elect them, they're going to have that chip on their shoulder to where they feel like they have to appease white people, or they feel like they don't want to seem too Black. So that's one thing that we have to take away, is that we have to take the emphasis away from appointing people just because of their color. And another example outside of Obama, of course, is if you go to most of the Black cities in the United States that are suffering, a lot of them have Black mayors. A lot of them, during school, I was in Baltimore, and Baltimore has a Black mayor, Black prosecutor, Black attorney general, not attorney general, Marilyn Mosby, all these Black officers. And yet the city's poor, disenfranchised, all these Black faces inside of these high government positions, but the city's education is horrible, the murder rate is horrible, and yet we're supposed to think that getting these Black people in office means something. Look at all the Black mayors. Look at what's going on with the debate about John Lewis. Realistically, having people in Atlanta who are Black mayors, Black congressmen and whatnot has not done anything for the disenfranchised people in Atlanta. So we have to get rid of that notion, if we're going to be politically mature, that we have to have a person of color. And I'm not saying that I would not prefer a person of color, but if we're going to have a person of color there to help us, they have to actually be beholden to our interest and what we actually expect of them. So that is one thing I think that should be taken away from the Obama years. Moving forward, though, into something that kind of really got me to make this video about political maturity is what's going on with Steve Harvey and, Jim Brown, Kanye West, but I don't count him so much. And, different people, Ray Lewis, who have been meeting with Donald Trump and receiving a lot of backlash. Now, I'm not saying that, I think Black people have a healthy dislike of Donald Trump for reasons. I don't think it's as many reasons as we believe, and I say that to say that Donald Trump has done horrible things to a lot of people, and has definitely said things that could rile up a lot of sensitivities from Black people, principally when it comes to Obama, his birth certificate, him not being a citizen because he has an African father. Also, the Central Park Five, that is, to me, the most appalling thing that Donald Trump has done is push for the conviction of these innocent Black men, and assisting even after it comes out that these Black men have DNA evidence saying that they were not the ones who committed a rape, yet he still felt convinced that they were the ones that did it. And, but those things, I would say, the more the hate, I think, that Donald Trump has spewed, it hasn't been so much on Black people. It's been on definitely gays and Mexicans and whatnot. But from what I see recently at least, there hasn't been as much as he has said against Black people. That's not to say he's not a racist. I am convinced that this man is a racist to his heart. But going back to political maturity, does being a racist mean that we have to basically completely oppose this person from the get-go and not try to get anything from it? Well, let's think about that. Have we had racist presidents before? Of course we've had racist presidents before. In fact, my issue with John Lewis and him basically acting like, Donald Trump's an anomaly is most of the presidents, I would say honestly all the presidents, but we're going to say most for argument's sake, most of the presidents that sat in the White House have been racist. And there are 5 presidents that are confirmed members of the Ku Klux Klan. The one that I can remember is Woodrow Wilson. So having a racist president is not a new thing for Black people. And if we're politically mature, we have to understand that America is a white supremacist country. And there's nothing that we could get from the office of the presidency from the basis of it being a loving office towards Black people. So going on that, basically. The other thing that we have to understand is that one of the presidents who done the most, and I say that in quotes because I don't know how you would measure politicians doing things for Black people, but you could say that this person did the most for Black people. Because I believe that Black people, ultimately, we have to do for ourselves, and it doesn't matter what the government does. However, the other president that I'm going to mention is President Johnson. And President Johnson was a very racist man. If he wasn't even more racist, I don't know if he was more racist, but, if there is a more racist, if he wasn't more racist than Donald Trump, then, I would be surprised, because this is a man who literally sat in office, was a Southerner who was from the segregated South, and he would actually call the Civil Rights Bill the nigger bill. So this is the President of the United States. Now, what makes Johnson relevant is that despite him being racist, because of the political atmosphere of things going on at that moment, to where white America had to let things happen, had to let their grip off of Black people somewhat, because of what's going on with the Vietnam War, and then what was going on with the fight with the Russians, the Cold War. All these things are going on, and it literally became a liability to the United States to continue certain racist policies. So you have this man who is a straight up racist, but understands that he has to loosen the grip off of Black people to have them settle down somewhat. And he passes some of the most, probably to this day, the most far-reaching legislation that has affected us. So President Johnson was able to pass the Civil Rights Act, the Voter Rights Act, the ESSA, which is for education. He also passed. There's another one. He passed a lot of. Look up whenever you get a chance. Look up all the legislation. Oh, the Fair Housing Act. That's another one that President Johnson passed. And you're going to realize that this one president who was a racist, because of the political atmosphere and things that were going on, he actually passed things that we are, benefiting from today, because, we don't have to go to segregated restaurants and schools and all that stuff. So this president was the one to do that. So when you look at Donald Trump, and I'm not saying that Donald Trump is going to be the next Johnson, I'm saying that we honestly don't know what's happening. And if we're talking about political maturity, guess what you have to do? You have to sit back and wait and let things play out. Now, my issue with is when you have people like Steve Harvey, Jim Brown, and Ray Lewis, Kanye West, different Martin Luther King Jr.'s son, I think it was the third, all these types of Black people who, many of them actually have a lot of credit for doing things in the Black community, and they decide that they want to meet with Donald Trump. Now, to me, as the Black community, being politically mature, understanding, yes, this guy's a racist. No, he's not our friend. But regardless of what his intentions are, we do not care about his intentions. We care about what Black people get out of this. Is there anything that we could get out of this? Because we didn't get jack out of having a Black president. So having that politically mature mindset, seeing that he's meeting with these people should not be ammunition for us to start calling them coons, to start, demonizing them. And the thing that pisses me off about what's going on is that I could see if this was like, who Sheriff David Clark. I could see if this was someone people who we actually know to be Uncle Tom's sellouts, people who we know to be that, coming around Donald Trump. But you have actually really well-respected people who have done things for the Black community. And there's one thing I cannot stand, it's when you have someone like Jim Brown, who, if you look at the history of Jim Brown, this man was like the Stokely Carmichael / the Malcolm X. He was really, he was just like Muhammad Ali for football. This is someone who fought hard for us. Very hard for us, and has not stopped. If you even up into his older days, listen to his speeches online. He's not just someone who did this in the past. He's someone who has continued to continue to fight for Black people, and the fact that some of us who haven't done anything for our people, but we tweet for a living, or we YouTube for a living, we write Facebook posts, and we think because we tweet hashtag Black Lives Matter that we have the right to look at someone who has actually been on the streets doing things for Black people and call them a coon. I mean, that's crazy to me. It's crazy to me how much disrespect that we have for our own people. And my thing is, at the very least, let's not fight each other. You don't have to agree. Me personally, do I think that Steve Harvey and all these people, do I think they're actually getting something from these first meetings? Realistically, I don't know, but I'm going to say there's probably not a lot to get. But the fact that we would be willing to demonize one of our own, and Steve Harvey too, Steve, he's a lot less, I would look at someone like Jim Brown as like a Black liberation leader. That's not Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey is a comedian. He's a businessman. Probably one of the biggest success stories to come out of Black community. But one thing that you cannot say against Steve Harvey, this man has given back a lot to our people. I mean, had so many programs in Chicago and different places for Black youth. And yet you who has not even done anything for us, people who, I'm too busy working my 9-to-5 job to leave and, go talk to some kids about this. People who probably don't even do anything for us to look at him, and him standing on national television saying, I'm doing this because I want to help Black youth, or I want to help urban cities and fair housing, and this is an opportunity to me. For us to look at him and call him a coon, I mean, seriously. To look at someone for trying when you ain't doing jack and you think that you can call them a coon is ridiculous. So again, we're talking about political maturity. Now, again, when it comes to Trump, I have a theory about what I think could possibly be a motivation of his, and it's not a sure theory, but it could be completely wrong. But this is just my theory, and if it's wrong, it's wrong. I'm not a political analyst. I'm just me. I think that there's a possibility that Trump is actually not the dumb person that we look at him as being. So we've seen this in this election, that he could possibly be really smart because he really was talking to these people who everyone was ignoring. No one was paying attention to those people out in the middle of Oklahoma or Montana or whatnot. No one was really paying attention to those types of people. Yet this dude seen an opening inside of politics and he went for it. My theory is maybe he's meeting with Black people, and he also put out something that was really interesting. He also put out a Black New Deal. You could look it up, Trump's Black New Deal, where he actually laid out all these policies of things that he wanted to do for the Black community. Really strange, right? Because the narrative is that he's a racist, and realistically, he is a racist. But this racist person is putting out these things that he would be willing to do for the Black community. My theory is that the same way that he was looking forward and seeing these, white people who were forgotten and whatnot, and saying, I'm going to appeal to them, my theory is that he understands that 4 years from now, a lot of those promises he made to those people, he won't be able to do anything with. I highly doubt this man's going to be able to build a freaking wall all the way across the United States or do a lot of things that he said he was going to do for them. Most of those promises are just not realistic inside of the scope of politics. And so what would happen in that scenario would be a lot of those people that came out for him the first time probably would not come out for him the second time. It would probably be a lot lower of a voter turnout. So looking forward to that, knowing that you cannot appease these people 4 years from now, who do you see? Well, you see these Black people who basically are completely Democrat. But if you could get the Black community to swing to Republican, even just for one election, that would totally decimate the Democratic Party's political influence. And so what he could be doing, again, it's just a theory, is looking for ways to try to make the Black vote swing. We're thinking about political maturity. These people are not our friends. Barack Obama, bless his heart, he was not your friend these 4 years. There's a video by Dr. Boyce Watkins where he talks about how Barack Obama, this president, who's the first Black president, was the one to block slavery reparations for Black people, as opposed to Trump, who was actually willing to listen to it. Go look it up. He was talking about how Dr. Claude Anderson was trying to get slavery reparations, and the Obama administration completely shut them down, despite the fact that Obama's administration was the one to pass reparations for Jewish people. And keep in mind, the ironic thing is, number one, the United States did not commit the Holocaust, and number two, number one, it did not commit the Holocaust, but number two, this happened back in World War II. And these reparations have been paid from Europe to the Holocaust victims. Black people have been having reparations not just from slavery, but we never got reparations for Jim Crow. We never got reparations for the prison industrial system. These are things that are continuing until today. And yet, for some reason, the president felt like it made sense to just give Jewish people who already received reparations and who were not even victims of the United States reparations. That's very crazy to me. But yet, the Trump administration was willing to listen. What could they possibly want out of this? They probably want the Black vote to swing. Should the Black vote swing? I don't know. Let's be politically mature. How do you be politically mature? Well, what's he offering? Because we're not getting anything from the Democrats, so we should have no loyalty to them. What are you offering? Don't worry about the fact that the Republicans marginalize all these other people, because let me tell you something about all those other people. And I'm someone who, I love all oppressed people, but I also have a special love for Black people. I have a special love for my people. And when I see something happening to my people, I have to have my allegiance to my people. So whenever things happen to Black people, what do? We fight for everyone. We fight for the Mexicans. We fight for the gays. We fight for the Native Americans. You've seen all of us at Standing Rock. And yet when things happen to us, it's basically just us fighting. You might get a couple of sympathizers. You might get a couple of people in solidarity. But for the most part, it's just us. No one's going to fight our battles, but we're supposed to fight their battles. That is a complete slavery mindset if we're going to keep going with that. So what I'm saying is, yes, Donald Trump has said things that are very alarming to Mexicans, Native Americans, all those people. But we're going to have to be politically mature. And being politically mature says, before we consider everything going on with y'all, what's going on with us? What can we get out of this? Because if y'all could get something out of this, you would go in a second. You would not care the fact that we weren't getting anything out of this. If you want to question that, look at the policies that got passed under the Obama administration. There's no, but we have to have Black people get No. It's gays, women, Latinos. Black people ain't get nothing. You can see no one saying, well, what about them? So being politically mature, we have to say, okay, this guy's offering something. Is this something that we want? And if there is something that is of substance, to me, like the biggest thing that could be done there's a lot of things that could be done. But the biggest things that could be done, the prison industrial complex, I do not see Donald Trump being the person to bring that down. But that's one of the biggest things that could be done on a federal level. But the other thing is the education system. And I will say that from what I've heard from Donald Trump, I'm not someone that's against charter schools. I think charter schools are probably the solution for a lot of Black kids. And if he would be willing to put funds into these charter schools and get these kids out of these failing public schools, I would be completely for that. So the education system is something that we could actually benefit from the federal government doing. Outside of that, I'm not someone who believes the federal government is going to save us. I believe we have to save ourselves. But I'm saying that to say, if there are things that they are offering that actually could help us, then should we consider swinging, despite the fact that it might leave out a lot of people? Hell yeah, we should consider swinging votes. And personally, this is my personal thing. I want the Black vote to switch. And not because I'm a Republican. I'm honestly neither. I think they're both the same party with one name, as W.E.B. Du Bois said in his essay. I will not vote. But when it comes to the Black vote swinging, I believe that if we could swing, that it would change the whole dynamics of people actually not just making promises to us, but actually having to keep up with those promises. Because you realize that it is already assumed that Black people are going to vote Democrat. And you realize when it's assumed that Black people are going to vote Democrat, you have no bargaining power. But if there was a legitimate fear and among the Democrats and Republicans that we don't know which way they're going to go, do you realize how much political leverage that would give us? So again, we're talking about political maturity. That is what I wanted to talk about. That is my hope. In 2 days, Donald Trump will be the president. When it first happened, I was very shocked, and I was kind of upset in a way, but not really, because I didn't want Hillary to win either. I actually voted third party, but I got over it quickly when I realized that this might be the fire under our feet that we need to actually do something about our condition. And I know that not all Black people are going to want to do something about our condition. That's the thing that I've learned to accept, is that, this idea that we're all going to be on the same page, it's ridiculous, because we've just been so divided as far as what we've been taught. There's some people who really do believe that white supremacy, and when I say that, I'm talking about the system that's in front of us, of institutions that oppress Black people. They really want to be a part of that system. And there's nothing that we could do, nothing that we could talk about to convince them that we could build our own system and be even better. And for those people, you have to let them go. But, I truly believe that this is an opportunity, and for us, if we are politically mature, to do something different. Ironically, Obama's change became the same, more of the same, and probably worse so, because our economic conditions were worse during his term. But I think this is an opportunity for us to honestly change. And one more thing I want to say is about D.L. Hughley, for the stuff that he said about Steve Harvey. Again, if you hate Donald Trump, I'm completely fine with that. You can hate him, If some people really feel a certain way about people being racist, I don't really feel a certain way about that, because one thing that I've learned is that I would rather deal with someone who was open about it than someone like a Hillary Clinton who's going to smile in my face and act like she's so pro-Black and do the wobble and do the nay-nay and all this stuff. But meanwhile, this was the woman who fought for the prison industrial complex to be what it is today, and has destroyed millions of Black families, and has not just that, but so many policies that she has done, so many things that she has fought for, so many things that she has said, convinced me that she's just as much of a racist as Donald Trump. But some people like that politician smiling in her face and making them feel okay, and making them feel comfortable. I don't need you to make me feel comfortable. I need to know what you're going to give me. But D.L. Hughley, to me, is one of those people who he loves Obama, and I say this as someone who actually watches a lot of D.L. Hughley's videos, and I respect him for having an opinion, and a lot of times it's well thought out. But for him to just go off on all these people for meeting with someone, like he has something better to offer. You don't have anything better to offer. What you're offering is that black people sit around and be mad at Donald Trump for 4 years. Now, again, I'm not saying Donald Trump is going to do something for black people that we need, but I'm saying we don't know, and to pretend that we do know that we can't get anything out of this presidency is ridiculous. But the thing I think D.L. Hughley and other celebrities and a lot of black people I would put in this category fail to realize is that they have the luxury of going through 4 years of Donald Trump and not having to worry about the education system, not having to worry about the housing system, not having to worry about the prison system, not having to worry about these things because guess what? They're privileged. And, the people who Steve Harvey is trying to help with housing, D.L. Hughley is going to be fine with housing. He has the privilege to just be a sideline observer and just, say all the stuff about Trump and, basically just be mad. He has that privilege. But guess what? There's a lot of black youth, and I would say the majority of black youth, who just do not have that privilege. And I think that Steve Harvey, whether or not he gets something out of it, him actually going out to meet with someone who I don't even think he likes him as far as Steve Harvey was actually a big Obama and Hillary supporter. But for him to be willing to do something like that and put himself inside of public scrutiny because he truly believes that he could do something for the black community, and for you to act like you have a moral position because you want to do nothing and you just want to be angry is ridiculous. So I've said everything I have to say. And I would love to hear your comments. I know this probably won't be a well-liked video because a lot of people hate Donald Trump, but I ask you to just not be in your emotions and to be base your comments on your logic. When you're talking based on emotions, you're going to say things and you're going to feel things. But when you're going based on your logic, you're looking at history and you're understanding that history has showed us what happens when things come together like this. And if we can learn from history, we can actually change history, and we can have a whole nother thing happen than what's happened in the past. So like I said, feel free to comment, just, based off of logic and not your emotions. All right, thanks.